3 rules that changed my life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever hit that point where you looked in the mirror and thought, there's more in me and I'm done settling? Yeah, I've been there too. Years ago, I was stuck. Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I was playing small, living in fear, pretending everything was fine when deep down, I knew I was built for more. Then something snapped. I made a decision, and that decision led me to these 3 rules. And they didn't just change my life, they saved it, they rebuilt it, they made me unstoppable. Let me give them to you. Rule 1, burn the damn boats. Most people have a plan B because they don't believe in plan A. Let me tell you something. As long as you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, you're never going to go all in. Success demands obsession, total immersion. When I decided to change my life, I eliminated the exit strategy, no safety net, no fallback plan. I burned the boats and said, I win or I die trying. You want power, you want purpose? Cut off the option of retreat. Watch what you become when you have no choice but to rise. Rule 2. Stand guard at the gate of your mind. Your mind is the control center of your destiny. Garbage in, garbage out. Most people let toxic thoughts, weak beliefs, and other people's limitations dictate their future. Not me. Not anymore. I made a new rule. If a thought doesn't serve me, it doesn't stay. Period. Every day, I condition my mind like a warrior. Gratitude, discipline, focus. I feed my brain the same way I feed my body, with fuel that makes me stronger. Remember this, your life will rise or fall to the level of your standards. So raise them. Rule 3, never negotiate with yourself. The moment you start negotiating with your excuses, you already lost. You say you'll wake up early, then the alarm goes off, and you hear that voice just 5 more minutes. That voice is the enemy. I made a rule. I do what I said I would do long after the feeling I said it in has faded. Discipline isn't sexy, but it builds empires. It creates freedom. It earns respect from the world and from yourself. When you learn to keep promises to yourself, your confidence becomes unbreakable. Let me wrap it with this. These 3 rules. Burn the boats, guard your mind, never negotiate with yourself. They're not just strategies, they're weapons. Weapons I use to break through my old life and step into the one I was born to live. And guess what? So can you. Because you're not here to live average. You're not here to survive. You're here to dominate. Make the decision, draw the line, and never, ever look back. Let's go. When I say burn the boats, I'm talking about making a decision so powerful, so absolute, that there is no going back. It's about committing with such intensity that failure is not even an option. Most people live their lives with 1 foot in and 1 foot out. They dabble, they try things, but they don't decide. They entertain the idea of change, but they always keep the door open just in case things don't work out. That's the problem. That safety net, that backup plan, it's not keeping you safe, it's keeping you small. It's stealing your urgency. It's robbing you of the pressure that forges greatness. When you have a plan B, what you're really saying is, I don't fully believe in plan A. You might say you're committed, but as soon as it gets uncomfortable, as soon as it gets hard, you've already given yourself an out. And guess what? You'll take it. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Your brain is wired for safety, not for greatness. It wants to avoid pain and discomfort. So when things get tough, and they always do, you'll start looking for the escape route. That's why the boats have to burn. That's why you have to decide with no return ticket. You can't become who you're meant to be while holding on to who you used to be. I remember a time in my life when I was at a crossroads. I was tired of being stuck, tired of waking up every day knowing I was living below my potential. I was surrounded by comfort, but I was starving for meaning. I kept telling myself, one day I'll make the leap. One day I'll go all in. But I always had a reason to wait. A job, a relationship, a sense of security. All of it felt necessary, but all of it was keeping me from the life I really wanted. And then one day I made the decision. I didn't ease into it. I didn't tiptoe around it. I lit a match and I burned the boats. I quit the job. I cut the excuses. I made a public commitment that there was no turning back from. And when I did that, everything changed. Not because the path got easier, but because I got stronger. The minute you take away the option to quit, you force your mind to find a way. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And you start asking, what will it take to make it work? That shift in focus, it's everything. It pulls out a version of you that most people never meet. A version that's resourceful, relentless, and ready to do whatever it takes. That version only shows up when you remove the crutches and stand on your own 2 feet. That version is buried under layers of fear, comfort, and distraction, but it's there. And you'll only meet it when you commit without conditions. Burning the boats is not reckless. It's not about being impulsive or naive. It's about betting on yourself so fully that you leave no room for mediocrity. People will tell you to be realistic. They'll warn you about the risks. They'll say you should have a backup plan just in case. But what they don't understand is that just in case becomes the case. That safety net becomes a trap. And the longer you sit in it, the harder it gets to climb out. When you eliminate the way out, your only option is forward. And when forward is the only option, you get creative. You get hungry. You take action at a level that most people never access. You stop waiting for the right time. You stop second guessing. You stop letting fear vote on your future. Fear thrives in hesitation. It grows in the gaps between decision and action. But when you decide, truly decide, you take fear out of the equation, you become the kind of person who doesn't just want success, you require it. It's not comfortable, it's not convenient, but neither is living a life of regret. Neither is wondering for the rest of your life what could have been if you had just gone all in. You can't grow and stay safe at the same time. You can't transform while clinging to what's familiar. At some point, you have to choose your comfort or your calling. You can't have both. Burning the boats is the moment you declare to yourself and the world, this is who I am now, this is where I'm going, and nothing is pulling me back. It's symbolic, but it's also very practical. It forces you to level up. It puts your back against the wall in the best way possible. It creates urgency, and urgency is power. People do more in the final hour than they do all week because the deadline is real. Burning the boats creates that deadline, creates that pressure. And under pressure, diamonds are made. Think about any great moment in your life. Any time you achieved something meaningful. Was it when everything was easy and safe, or was it when you had to dig deep, when you had no choice but to rise? That's the fire burning the boats creates. It strips away the noise, forces clarity, makes you face yourself, and it makes you fight for what matters. That kind of pressure reveals your truth, shows you what you're really made of. People love the idea of transformation, but they don't want to pay the price. Burning the boats is the price. It's a signal to your subconscious that you're not playing anymore. You're done rehearsing. You're not trying, you're doing. And when you approach your life with that kind of energy, the universe responds. Doors open, opportunities show up. But not because they weren't there before. Because now you're finally ready to walk through them. You're finally showing up like the person who deserves them. So many people think they need more information, more time, more support. But what they really need is more commitment. Not the kind you feel, the kind you decide. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that doesn't negotiate with fear. That kind of commitment only comes when you take away the alternative. When you remove the exit sign and say, this is it, that's when you find out who you are. That's when you stop dabbling and start dominating. That's when you stop hoping and start becoming. That's what burning the boats is all about. Stand guard at the gate of your mind. Those words hit me like a brick when I first heard them, not because I understood them, but because deep down I knew I wasn't doing it. I was letting in every voice, every opinion, every toxic whisper that told me who I was, what I couldn't do, and why I wasn't enough. I was renting out space in my mind to people who hadn't earned the right to be there. I was listening to fear, feeding it, and letting it decide the direction of my life. And then it hit me. If I'm not guarding my mind, someone else is running it. And they sure as hell don't have my best interests in mind. Your mind is your most powerful weapon. It's the battlefield where your future is won or lost. It doesn't matter how much talent you have, how many resources you've gathered, or how big your dreams are. If your mind isn't under control, none of that matters. Because the stories you believe will always shape your behavior, and your behavior will shape your results. It's that simple. You can't outperform your self-perceive. You can't win if you're walking into every day already defeated by your own thoughts. But here's the thing. Those thoughts aren't just random. They're planted, they're repeated, and they're conditioned. Your environment is constantly feeding you messages, whether you're aware of it or not. Social media, the news, the people you hang out with, the content you consume, all of it is programming your beliefs. All of it is either strengthening you or weakening you. And most people are completely asleep to that fact. They're letting anyone and anything shape their mindset. They treat their brain like a bus station, open 24/7, and anyone can walk in. But you can't afford to do that, not if you want to become something more. Standing guard means being ruthless about what gets in. It means becoming the curator of your inner world. You wouldn't let someone dump trash on your front lawn and just leave it there, right? But how many times do we let negativity, doubt, and insecurity take root in our thoughts and do absolutely nothing about it? It's not just about thinking positive. That's surface level. It's about being deliberate, about filtering, questioning, and choosing what you allow yourself to believe. Every belief you hold was once just a thought you heard enough times to accept as truth. Some of those beliefs were inherited, passed down by parents, teachers, society. Some of them were forged through pain, failure, rejection. But just because a belief is old doesn't make it right, and just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's true. If you don't challenge the thoughts that limit you, you're signing off on a version of life that doesn't belong to you. You're living someone else's story. When I started changing my life, the first battle I had to win wasn't external, it was mental. I had to confront the junk I was carrying, the labels I had accepted, the lies I had told myself. I had to stop letting fear set the boundaries of my potential. I had to stop listening to the inner critic that told me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, ready enough. That voice still shows up sometimes, but now I meet it at the gate. I don't let it move in and redecorate. Protecting your mind doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means choosing which reality to focus on. You can focus on the problem or the possibility. You can focus on your past or your potential. Both are real, both are available, but whichever one you feed will grow. Your thoughts are the lens you view the world through. If that lens is dirty, clouded by fear, scarcity, doubt, then everything you see will feel tainted. But clean the lens, and suddenly you see opportunity where others see obstacles. You see progress where others see pressure. This is why your inner circle matters so much. Who you spend time with is who you become. If you're constantly around people who complain, make excuses, and settle, it becomes your normal. You start to match their energy, adopt their language, and inherit their limitations. But if you're around people who think big, take ownership, and raise standards, it forces you to level up. You don't even realize it, but you absorb the mindset of the people around you. That's why protecting your mental environment is just as important as protecting your physical one. You wouldn't live in a house full of mold and expect to stay healthy. Why do we expect our minds to thrive in toxic environments? When you stand guard at the gate of your mind, you become intentional with what you consume. Books, podcasts, conversations, inputs. You stop scrolling mindlessly and start feeding your brain with material that challenges you, grows you, stretches your perspective. You stop looking for validation and start looking for wisdom. You train your focus like a muscle. You become aware of your inner dialogue, not just what you say, but the tone you say it in. Because your inner voice is shaping your identity every single day. Guarding your mind also means knowing how to manage state. Your state, your emotional and physiological condition, determines how you interpret reality. When your state is low, everything feels heavy. You see problems everywhere. You hesitate, you procrastinate, you shrink. But when your state is high, when your energy is aligned, your breath is strong, your posture is upright, you step into a completely different mode. You don't just think better, you act bolder. You move differently. That's not magic, it's mastery. You can't always control what shows up in life, but you can control how you respond. And your response is a direct reflection of your mindset. When your mind is trained, conditioned, focused, life doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. You become resilient. You bounce back faster. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the author of your outcomes. That kind of mental strength doesn't happen by accident. It's a discipline, a daily decision. Just like going to the gym, you don't get results from one workout. You get them from consistency, from repetition, from showing up even when you don't feel like it. Training your mind is no different. You build strength by doing the reps. By catching negative thoughts in the moment and replacing them. By writing new beliefs and reading them over and over until they feel like truth. By visualizing success, not just once, but daily, until your brain starts believing it's inevitable. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about preparing yourself to thrive no matter what. It's about building a mindset so solid that even when life punches you in the face, and it will, you don't fold, you adjust, you adapt. You respond from power, not panic. From clarity, not chaos. That level of mental mastery doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen when you commit to standing guard at the gate every single day. Never negotiate with yourself. That rule right there changed everything for me. Because let's be honest, most people lose the battle before they even take the first step, and they lose it in their own head. They set a goal, they make a promise, they feel that surge of motivation, and then the moment it gets uncomfortable, they start negotiating. They hear that little voice that says, it's okay to skip just this once, or you've worked hard, you deserve a break, or you're tired, you'll do it tomorrow. And the moment you entertain that voice, you give it power. You teach your mind that your word doesn't mean much. You send a message that your commitments are flexible. And if your commitments are flexible with yourself, they'll eventually be flexible in every area of your life. The truth is, discipline is freedom, but most people think it's restriction. They think following through on what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it, is some kind of punishment. It's the opposite. It's where real power is born. Because when you stop negotiating, you start executing. You stop analyzing, overthinking, delaying, and you start doing. And in that doing, you build something far more valuable than the outcome itself. You build identity. You become the kind of person who follows through, the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves. And once you start stacking those wins, even the small ones, your confidence becomes bulletproof. Let's talk about that internal negotiation. It's subtle. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like self-care, like kindness. But it's a trick. It's the mind trying to protect you from discomfort. The mind's job is survival, not success. It wants to keep you safe, conserve energy, avoid stress. That's its programming. But success lives in stress. Growth lives in discomfort. The person you're trying to become isn't found inside the comfort zone. That's why you can't trust that voice. You can't enter a negotiation with your lesser self and expect to walk out stronger. You have to shut it down before it starts. You have to make your commitments non-negotiable. When I made this rule for myself, everything shifted. I used to be the guy who set alarms and snoozed them, who set goals and abandoned them, who said this time is different and then didn't follow through. And I hated that version of myself, not because he was lazy, but because he was inconsistent, he was untrustworthy. And nothing erodes self-esteem faster than breaking your own word. But the day I decided that my word was law, that if I said it, it was as good as done. That's the day I started to change. Not externally, internally. Because now, when I say I'm going to do something, it's not a maybe, it's a must. That doesn't mean I always feel like it. I don't. No one does. That's the whole point. The feelings don't dictate the action, the commitment does. You want to work out, but you're tired? Too bad, you said you would. You want to build a business, but you're scared to make that call? Too bad. You said you would. You want to write a book, but the words aren't flowing? Sit down and write anyway. You said you would. That's how you win. Not with talent, not with motivation, with follow through. With showing up when it's hard, with consistency in the face of resistance. There's a quiet strength in people who don't negotiate with themselves. You can see it, you can feel it. They walk into a room and you know what they say they're going to do, and there's a respect they carry. And it's not from other people, it's from within. It's self-respect. And that's earned, not given. It's earned in the early mornings, the late nights, the moments when no one is watching, and you still choose to do what's right over what's easy. That's where character is built. And character is the foundation of everything. We live in a world obsessed with hacks, shortcuts, and 10-step formulas to success. Everyone's looking for the easiest way, the fastest path. But there is no shortcut to becoming someone you're proud of. There's no cheat code to integrity. The fastest way to change your life is to stop negotiating with your excuses and start executing your standards. Decide what you value, decide what you want, and then make those things non-negotiable. Not when you feel inspired, not when the stars align, every single day, especially when it's inconvenient. Think about the promises you've made to other people, your family, your friends, your coworkers. When you give your word to someone else, you probably feel some sense of obligation to follow through. You don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to look like a flake. But how many times do we give our word to ourselves and then break it without a second thought? That's where the damage happens. That's where the cracks in our confidence begin. Because deep down, you know you're not living in alignment with what you said you'd do. And that inner conflict creates anxiety, frustration, even depression, not because you're broken, but because you're out of integrity with yourself. Every time you honor your word, you reinforce a powerful belief. I can trust me. And trust in yourself is the foundation for everything you want to build. Relationships, business, fitness, finances. It all comes down to whether or not you trust yourself to follow through. That trust is built one decision at a time, one action at a time, one non-negotiable moment at a time. And the more of those you stack, the more unstoppable you become. There will always be moments where the negotiation tries to creep in. Moments when it's easier to quit, to delay, to justify. But those are the moments that define you. Those are the forks in the road where you either build discipline or feed doubt. And once you realize that every decision is a vote for the type of person you're becoming, you stop seeing them as isolated incidents. You start seeing them as part of a bigger picture. You start recognizing that the small moments matter the most. Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. This isn't about perfection. You will slip, you will stumble. But the goal is progress, not perfection. And progress happens when the standard is clear. When you say, I don't negotiate with myself, you're setting that standard. You're drawing a line in the sand. You're deciding that your word is final, that your future is worth more than your comfort, that your dreams are more important than your doubts, that your discipline is stronger than your excuses. And when you live from that place, everything starts to change from the inside out. Your habits, your energy, your focus, your confidence, it all rises to meet the level of your consistency. And that consistency comes from doing what you said you'd do, no matter how you feel in the moment. That's the rule. That's the standard. That's the game changer. Raise your standard. That single decision is the starting point of every transformation. Not setting a goal, not making a plan, not dreaming big. It starts when you say to yourself, this is no longer acceptable. I will no longer tolerate this level of living, this level of energy, this level of performance, this version of me. Standards are not wishes. They are not preferences. They are lines in the sand. And when you raise them, not in theory, not on paper, but in your behavior, everything in your life starts to shift. Because life doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you tolerate. Most people never get what they truly desire because they're living by old standards. Standards they inherited. Standards shaped by fear, by the people around them, by past failures. And they wonder why they feel stuck, why they keep repeating patterns, why no matter how many goals they set, they end up back in the same place. It's not the goals that are broken, it's the standard. If you raise the standard, the goals take care of themselves. Because when something becomes a must, you find a way. When it's just a should, you find an excuse. Think about the areas of your life where you're thriving right now. I promise you it's not just because you're passionate or skilled. It's because consciously or unconsciously you've set a higher standard there. Maybe it's your health, maybe it's your relationships, maybe it's your career. But somewhere in your mind you've said, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I show up. And that identity drives your actions. Not motivation, not willpower, identity. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with who we believe we are. So if you want a different result, you don't just need a better strategy, you need a higher standard and a stronger identity to match it. Standards are not loud, they're not posted on your wall, they're not shouted on social media. They show up in your habits. They show up in your choices when no one's watching. They show up in how you treat your time, your body, your work, your relationships. If you say your standard is excellence, but you cut corners when things get hard, that's not your real standard. If you say your standard is health, but you consistently choose comfort food over clean fuel, that's not your real standard. Your real standard is whatever you walk past, whatever you tolerate, whatever you allow. When I finally raised my standards, it wasn't because life handed me a wake-up call. It was because I got sick of my own excuses. I got tired of living beneath what I knew I was capable of. I looked in the mirror and told myself the truth, not the sugar-coated version, the raw, unfiltered truth. I was living average in areas where I knew I was built for more, and the gap between who I was and who I could be was creating pain. Not the kind of pain that shouts, the kind that lingers quietly and steals your fire, the kind that makes you numb. That was the moment. That was when I drew the line. Not another day, not another hour, not another minute living beneath my potential. That was when I stopped hoping things would get better and decided to get better myself. A new standard isn't just a decision, it's a demand. It's a new baseline. It's not about going from zero to hero overnight. It's about saying, from this day forward, I don't drop below this line. Whether that's in your energy, your income, your impact, or your integrity. And the moment you make that decision, the universe responds. Not because of magic, but because your energy changes. Your actions change. You stop accepting mediocrity, you start moving different. You stop being available for drama, for delay, for distraction. You start attracting people, opportunities, and challenges that match the new level you've committed to. It's not always easy. The moment you raise your standard, resistance will show up. People around you may not get it. They may feel threatened. They may try to pull you back to the old level. Not because they're bad people, but because your growth challenges their comfort. You've got to be ready for that. You've got to protect your new standard like your life depends on it, because it does. The quality of your life is a reflection of the standards you refuse to compromise. And the moment you compromise, even a little, you send a message to your mind, this isn't real. And your mind responds accordingly. It lowers the bar again. It goes back to default. That's why it's not just about raising the standard, it's about reinforcing it daily. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce a new standard is through rituals, not routines. Rituals are how you do them with presence, with intensity, with intention. When you wake up and start your day with a ritual that aligns with your highest self, whether it's a workout, journaling, meditation, or reviewing your goals, you condition your nervous system to live at a higher level. You prime your brain to act from purpose, not from pressure. And over time, those rituals stack. They build momentum. They become part of who you are. Another way is by changing your environment. Your standard is shaped by your surroundings. If you want to change your life, change what you're exposed to. Change who you talk to. Change what you listen to. If you're the highest standard in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get around people who make you rise, people who are living at a level that demands more from you, not in a competitive way, but in a challenging way. You don't grow in safe environment. You grow when you're stretched, when you're slightly uncomfortable, when you're around people who hold you to your word even when it's hard. Raising your standard is also about mastering language. The words you use shape your reality. If you say, I'll try, you've already given yourself an out. If you say, I should, you're not committed. But if you say, I must, everything changes. Musts create movement. Musts tap into your deepest reasons. Must activate the warrior inside you. And when you back that language with action, you start rewriting your story. Not someday. Now. With urgency, with precision, with clarity. And the final piece, accountability. You cannot raise your standard in a vacuum. You need pressure. You need someone who sees your greatness and won't let you off the hook. Someone who will call out your blind spots and remind you of what you said you wanted when you're tempted to settle. Accountability isn't judgment, it's love, it's alignment. It's the difference between intention and execution. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, do all the visualizations, but if no one is holding you to the fire, it's easy to slip back. Find someone who won't let you forget who you are, and better yet, become that person for someone else. When you raise your standard and live it fully, you give others permission to do the same. You become the example, the spark, the standard. Change your state, change your life. That one idea unlocked a whole new level of power for me because I finally understood that how I feel, how I think, and how I act are all connected to the state I'm in. Not just emotionally, but physically, mentally, even spiritually. Most people try to change their life by starting with willpower or forcing themselves to push through resistance. But they never deal with the root, the state they're living in every day. And the truth is, if you don't learn how to control your state will control you. You can have the best strategies in the world, the perfect plan, the right tools, but if you're in a disempowered state, tired, angry, distracted, fearful, none of it matters. You won't execute. You won't show up fully. You'll hesitate, procrastinate, play small, not because you're lazy or weak, but because your state dictates your behavior. It's like trying to win a race with the parking brake on. You're pressing the gas, but something's pulling you back. The moment you release the brake, the moment you shift your state, you unlock speed, clarity, momentum. Most people live in reaction. Something happens and they respond. Traffic, stress, a message they didn't like, a look from someone at work, and boom, their state changes. They go from calm to irritated, focused to frustrated, energized to exhausted. All because they've trained themselves to give away control of their emotions to external circumstances. But if you want to take your life to the next level, you can't afford to be at the mercy of what's happening around you. You have to become the thermostat, not the thermometer, the one who sets the tone, not just reflects it. The way to do that is through physiology. That's the fastest way to change your state. The body leads the mind. You can't be depressed if you're standing tall, breathing deeply, moving with energy. You can't be anxious if your shoulders are back, your jaw's relaxed, and your breath is slow and steady. The nervous system is wired to respond to how we move. Change your posture, change your breath, change your focus, and you change your state. Every single time. It's not a maybe, it's science. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait for motivation to feel better. You don't have to wait for something to inspire you. You can choose it, you can prime it, you can build rituals that put you in peak state on demand. One of the most powerful tools I ever adopted was what I call a state reset. It takes 90 seconds. I get up, shake out the tension, breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth, repeat powerful incantations, and move my body like the person I want to become. I do this before big meetings, before workouts, even before conversations that matter, because I don't want to show up as a version of myself that's tired, distracted, or reactive. I want to show up with presence, power, and purpose. And that comes from being in the right state. It's not magic, it's muscle memory. You train it, you install it, and once you do, it becomes automatic. Another way to shift your state is by changing your focus. What you focus on, you feel. Focus on what's missing and you'll feel lack. Focus on what's wrong and you'll feel frustrated. Focus on what's possible, what you've learned, what you're grateful for, and you'll feel empowered. It's that simple. But most people don't manage their focus. They let it wander. They scroll, they compare, they judge, they worry, and then they wonder why they feel anxious or uninspired. Your mind is a powerful tool, but it needs direction. If you don't tell it what to focus on, it will default to survival. It will scan for threats, problems, danger. That's not because you're negative, it's because your brain is designed to protect you. But you're not here to survive, you're here to grow. You're here to create. So you've got to give your mind new instructions. Ask better questions. Questions like, what's great about this moment? What can I learn from this challenge? How can I use this? What would the best version of me do right now? The quality of your questions shapes the quality of your life because your brain will always look for answers. Feed it questions that expand you, not questions that shrink you. And when you combine that with powerful movement and intentional breathing, you become unstoppable. Not because you never face problems, but because you don't let the problems define your state. Language is another game changer. The words you use shape your experience. If you say, I'm overwhelmed, your body will respond to that. You'll feel tight, anxious, stuck. But if you say, I'm facing a challenge and I'm rising to meet it, everything shifts. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, your energy comes back online. We forget how powerful words are. We use them casually, but they program our nervous system. Change your language, change your life. Don't say I can't, say I haven't figured it out yet. Don't say I'm exhausted. Say I need to recharge and I'm doing that now. Don't say this is hard, say this is stretching me. Same situation, different experience, simply because the state is different. You've got to guard your state like your life depends on it, because it does. Your relationships depend on it. Your business depends on it. Your happiness, your creativity, your leadership, your influence. They all depend on the energy you bring. And energy is not just about sleep or food or exercise. It's about how you manage your emotional and mental state throughout the day. It's about being intentional instead of reactive. Proactive instead of passive, powerful instead of drained. We all have default states, patterns we fall into when we're stressed or tired or triggered. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's apathy, maybe it's self-doubt. And the key is not to judge those patterns, but to become aware of them, to catch them in the moment and choose something better, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because the version of you that creates the life you want lives in a different state. And if you want to access that version consistently, you've got to make state management a non-negotiable part of your life. Think about it like this. The state you're in determines the quality of the decisions you make. And the quality of your decisions determines the direction of your life. So if you're making decisions in a stressed, fearful, low energy state, don't be surprised if the results match that. But if you can pause, reset, elevate your state, and then make the decision, you change the trajectory. You don't need to figure everything out at once. You just need to consistently get yourself into the state where the best answers, the most resourceful ideas, and the highest version of you can come forward. This isn't about faking positivity or pretending everything's perfect. It's about emotional fitness. Just like physical fitness, it's something you train, something you condition, something you build over time. And just like the gym, you don't get stronger by doing what's comfortable. You get stronger by pushing through resistance, by lifting heavier emotions, by challenging